Maha
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Shanti
Shri
Shanti
Guru Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat. So let's start from where we have left yesterday. We were doing the verse number 4, the sutra number 4, and there was some good discussion yesterday. But I will do a quick revision because the relay was not successful for some technical snag. Dhyanadhisthana Matrika. We have already done Chaitanyam Atma, Jnanam Vandaha, and finally Yoni Vargaha Kala Shariram. And then this is Jnanadhishtanam, Yoni Vargaha Kala Shariram. So Jnanam Bandhaha is about Anava Mala, which is about your Swarupa, forgetting your own Swarupa. And the Maya Mala is Yoni Vargaha. And then you have the main deity that is associated with this is actually Vama. Then you have Amba, Jeshta, and Rodri, and how this whole delusion sort of is spun around by these divinities, these energies. Maya Mala, and we have already done it. What is the job of it? It has something to do with your a kind of a faulty understanding about whole thing. So, and finally, karma mala, that kala shariram, then kriya sakti. So, what you are doing, all that, the pancha kritya of Supreme Paramashiva, once the creation happens, when the inversion, the inverted way in which we see reality, it gets converted, same powers of the Supreme Spirit gets converted into Panchakanchukatva of Maya, becomes instruments in the hands. So, what kind of example can we give? You have seen quite a few, right? So, it's like a CEO, there's a policy which is made, but once that is rolled out for implementation, what happens is at the ground level there'll be some kind of a operational officer, the chief operating officer. He'll give it a implementation shape, and the big vision mission statements will not necessarily translate into it. There is a kind of sankosha, a contraction that happens, and we have sort of paid attention to that, which was mentioned yesterday. Now, Jnanasthishthana Matraka, the first movement of this avarana starts with avarana. So you have this Chit Sakti, Ananda Sakti of Lord Shiva, Supreme Self. The Chit Sakti, which is Sarva Vyapaka, all pervading, and how that sort of gets limited, it becomes Niyati. Similarly, the Ananda Sakti, which is Nitya, becomes Anitya. Okay, so that Ananda Sakti is now translated into a certain, everything is getting delimited. And similarly, you have the, so that comes down, each of these are kind of getting inverted, and they're getting less and less important. They are exactly doing the opposite of what they were supposed to do. And that becomes, and then you have the kriya sakti, that becomes kala, subha karma vasana. So I will do this, or I will do that, that kind of a vikalpatmaka buddhi you have abhikalpakatma, and then you have that swatantra siddhi, you are aware of your awareness. It starts with that atma vismriti, that is what we had discussed yesterday. So that chidgana, so that chidgana ananda swarupa is forgotten, and then these matru saktis, they take over the responsibility. The vyapara of the matru saktis is what we have already mentioned while discussing about this. Jnanam bandha is mentioned. Swarupa varane chasya saktaya satoto thita. Swarupa avarane. When these energies get activated, why are we discussing about these energies who are kind of putting us in trouble and stealing our self awareness? Once we know the signs of how the consciousness functions, then we can work with, one of my professors used to all the time say, we learn about the laws of nature to transcend the laws of nature. If we do not have a good understanding about gravitation, if we did not know about laws of buoyancy, we did not know the Archimedes principle, we didn't know about laws of gravitation, perhaps we will not be able to go to space. So the liberation starts with a good understanding about how things have unfolded, how they bind us, how they set certain limitations on our consciousness. So this beautiful sentence Bhatta Kalata says, Swarupasya स्वभाव आच्छादने च अस्य पुरुषस्य शक्तयः ब्राह्म्याद्याः पूर्वमुक्ता ताः ताः सततं युद्युक्ताः. Brahmi is one of the Saktis, and in the Varnamatrikas. So this is one name, Brahmi. She's the, if you look at the Vargas that we had discussed, and we'll revisit it very quickly, she's sort of the Ka Varga, she rules about it. And she sort of these all these Saktis get activated, the Saptamatrikas, and then you have either Mahalakshmi or Maheshwar, whatever the eighth one. You have these Ashtavargas. Everything starts with language, all the thoughts. So the self-awareness, which is united, integrated, holistic, gets fragmented, gets mediated through thoughts with the help of language. And then we are caught up with different projections of our raga dvesha, inherited impressions. The spiritual unity of us with the Supreme Self is lost. What happens is that we are trapped in divergent, self-contradicting, contrary, movements and tendencies and inclinations. That is how we go far away from who we are. And we are trapped in ajnana. And that becomes the source of our bondage. Bondage in what sense? When you are relaxing and enjoying your material life, yes. But that doesn't open the door for the bliss of self-awareness and liberation. That is why we are there. So, Utpalacharya also says, Asya cha pungshaha swarupa varane स्वभाव आच्छादने शक्तयः पूर्वक्ता ब्रह्माद्या शब्द रूपः क्रियाशक्ति द्वारेण सततम उद्यताः सदा सन्निहिताः पुंग रूपग लपनाय. So that particular your pure self, that purity of your existence, your spiritual truth, your spiritual reality, that you are essentially by nature, you are representing that spirit of Paramashiva. To meditate on Paramashiva, to ascend to your pure state of being, you need to cross through the layers of delusion or blindness created by these energies, which are employed by Lord Shiva himself, the Paramashiva himself, for the purpose of to disguise himself and to roll out this whole samsara before us. That is the Srishti Prakriya. By nature, it will be like this. So by nature, by very nature of the things as they are, this is how they are unfolding. If we understand how they roll out, why they roll out, what are the consequences and the implications for us, our well-being, then perhaps we would be able to. It's like somebody gives you, if you have this Himalayan car rally, so they first do a rally much before to understand what is the terrain like, what are the things I'm going to negotiate. If you don't know you're participating in that Himalayan car rally, I'm sorry, you're not going to make much progress. You'll return disheartened. Same way in our life, this Kashmiri Saivism gives a lot of importance on the details of how we get deluded, how we get trapped, so as to empower us. What kind of meditations and upasanas can we do to negotiate our way of progress, negotiate our way up, and within ourselves, to ourselves, which is Paramashiva Tattva. So there is this sentence, Paramrita rasa payas tasya yah pratyodbhavah tena swatantratam eti sacha tanamatra gocharaha. So this is one sentence. What happens is there is pratyaya udbhava, yaha pratyaya udbhava, whatever pratyayas, your sensations, your feelings, your thoughts, that is pratyaya. Like you have a feeling of goodness, you're feeling bad, you have an emotional experience, you have a cognitive experience. What exactly happens without going deeper into it? Whenever, just imagine you're sitting in meditation, one letter arrives from an old age friend, very old friend of yours. It unravels a world you had forgotten, and immediately you get connected with all that. It triggers a lot of memories and sensations in you. That is what is pratyaya udbhava. We have been born again and again. There's a whole load of our memories which are hiding in a very encrypted form in our subconscious. And then when you have your sense organs get externally oriented, connect with objects of good experience, objects of pleasure, whatever you think are useful, that very moment, because of laws of direction, because of lack of self awareness in spiritual terms. Sri Aurobindo, I was reading it yesterday, has written a fantastic commentary on Ishavasya Upanishad. So one should read it because he's not taking the typical orthodox, Sankara, Adi Sankara path to explaining samsara is Maya, Brahman is. No, he's not saying this. He's saying it's a very mysterious reality and it has layers of manifestation. There is a spiritual unity of all of us, spiritual unity and integrity. If you understand that, then you participate in the world. Then you're successful. In what sense? It will lead to spiritual illumination through what you do and what you learn. Once you are forgetful of that sense of unity, then you are lost in this whole conundrum called life and you never sort of find yourself. And that's a different thing that if we ever do that, Upanishad will get into it. So what is happening is that all these matrikas, the Varna matrikas, matrisaktis, by them, what role they play? They have a role to play in Shorupa Avarana, that you forget yourself. How does that happen? He's saying, Yatah Savdanuvedhena Navina Pratyodhavaha. Any pratyaya, any memories that are triggered in you, any thoughts, any sensations and emotions, which are a consequence of your association or external orientedness, but they are a consequence, but they're a cause of your karma mala which emerges. Subha Subha Karma Vasana, I want to do this, I want to do that. But starting with that Anama mala thing, Swarupa Vismriti. So that is how this Paramrita Rasa. What is that Paramrita Rasa? There is a certain complete harmony and integrity, samarasya between Shiva and Sakti, that supreme reality. God is meditating on his own identity through that consciousness, Shiva, Sakti, all the time together. We have done that in the intro. And then you have pratyas, that means you have vikalpa jnana. Earlier you were vikalpa hina swarupa, without any alternatives. You're unified. And then you have vishaya sambandha, some sort of a relationship with what you consider to be the object of your pleasure. The game starts. What is the game? The game of impoverishment, denudation, limitation, demeaning of your pure, pristine self-awareness. Then you are trapped in this whole samsara, because of which, as soon as you come back from your office, what do you need? You want to go to the bar, you go to the restroom, give yourself a good shower, you want to do a bit of meditation, you want to relax. And if you have a careful, kind family towards you, they know Papa has come home and this guy is completely in stress. Don't disturb him. He needs to sort of recapture himself. You are trying to recapture yourself, and if you haven't recaptured and there are two more demands, there is a party or they have to go to this or some person is going to come, you are completely lost. You are stressed out. That can happen to anybody. So we are trying to recapture ourselves through this particular satsang. The purpose they are trying to tell us is that you have to first understand what is pratyaya udbhava. And this pratyaya udbhava is an awareness of objects and a mode of thinking, a cognitive process, an emotional experience, which gives you an outward orientation, dissociation from your pristine purity, and loss of the idea, the fundamental upalabdhi, the realization of unity. The moment we forget about that foundational spiritual unity, then we are lost in the details. So, see, Pratyaya Udbhav in that sense is the mother of all evils, because you're forgetting yourself. Then only can you misunderstand yourself as X or Y or Z. You forget your purpose. And that happens to us every moment. And the entrapment starts. So that is the Swarupa Vishmarana, forgetfulness of your Swarupa, what is your essential nature, starts with Pratyaya Udbhava. That Pratyaya Udbhava then can be traced to mediation of whatever you have experienced when you are connecting with an external object or a past memory or whatever. That Pratyaya Udbhava happens or fructifies through the use of language And language is possible through words, and words are constructed with Varna Matrikas, alphabets. That is how, and all these separate Varna Matrikas, remember, are essentially isolated manifestation before our eyes when we are studying. We are talking about them, of one unified Sakti of the Supreme Lord Shiva. These are so many, but actually it's one Sakti, and that sort of becomes so many. That Maya Sakti has become so many, and that we have to understand. Therefore, he's saying, Yataha sabda rahitasya pratyayasya jnanasya nastyevam kasyachid udbhavaha. Without the help of sabda rahita, there is a particular thought you have, but it's not constructed in words. You have some feeling, but until you are in a position to describe it to yourself, articulate it in words, you would not know what it means to you. That's why they say, okay, I'm emotionally upset. What do the people who are counselors do? They ask you to speak about yourself. They generally don't suggest anything. Good counselors will not interpret anything. They create a mirror, an extremely clean mirror in which you can see yourself. They create that comfort. They encourage you to reveal, and you talk about yourself. And once you learn to articulate your feelings and thoughts and all, and then he will ask you pointed questions like the Shiva Sutra is telling us, then they will push us to your root, and you are forgetful of so many things. They take you there, and then you become self-aware in a very intermittent way. It's not that ultimate self-awareness, then you will get liberated, but somewhere there is also, a lot of interpersonal psychology and more holistic healing processes, even in psychiatry, alternative ways of counseling. So they are helping you recover your own self. You reconstruct yourself. A good healing, a good counseling process through which you heal yourself is when you suddenly discover your new purpose. In what sense? You had set a purpose at the age of 23, then 30, then 35, and right now you're sort of looking at all these emotions, thoughts, the processes that you are engineering yourself through, guiding yourself through. You are not finding a handle, you are feeling lost. It starts with that jnanam bandha, yoni vargaha kala sarira, and finally he's saying that jnanam adhishthana matrika. Jnana adhishthana matrika. So the pratyaya udbhava, then he's saying that these are tena asatvantratam eti. It assumes loss of its autonomy and independence. That means it gets entrapped. Sacha tanamatra gocharaha, and it becomes externally oriented and lost in the details of the material reality outside of it. It could be living, non-living, it could be a thought, it could be artistic, it could be anything. But imagine there's a disconnection from being yourself. Therefore, he's saying, Yatah sabda rahitasya pratyasya jnanasya nasti evam kasyachit udbhavaha. He says this Bhattakalata in Spanda Vritti. So it's a kind of compilation of different views here. Now, the next question which anybody will raise, if you say all that, or we would like to raise, how the play of the Shaktis, the Shiva Shakti, the Maik power of the Supreme Self, the supreme spiritual absolute, in whatever words you feel comfortable to narrate it, how does that play a role in degrading our independent self and its essential unity to a state of fragmentation and separateness and dependence? How does that happen? Won't you ask that question? He's saying, look, the Sakta Prasara, that expansion of the role being played by this Maya Shakti, how does that happen? First is Pratyudbhava, Atma Vishmriti, then Surupavaranam. Atma Vishmriti means then it is covered. You see the rope as a snake. You see yourself, and then something is, they all the time say, never ever take what others talk about you too seriously. Because in a way, they're brainwashing or gaslighting, or as they say, they're grooming you. If I can put it in that way, it's a very wrong use of the word. They are fashioning your self-awareness in a way where you may You can call it manipulation, you can call it whatever, but there's some kind of a subtle manipulation of who you are, and that is happening these days 24/7 because of social media. And we are seeing all kinds of things, and we do not know how to return to ourselves. Sometimes to return to ourselves, we check more YouTube videos and we listen to more talks and stuff like that. But jnanadhishtanam matrika. These are the mother force. What is the foundation of all that we are dealing with? Words. And the mystery of words, the occult power behind it, that mystical approach is kind of explained here. So pratyodbhava, swarupavarana, and then you become pasuvartini kriya, subhasuva karma vasana. Pasuvartini, it will reduce you to an animal. Pashu, loss of autonomy. The Pashupati is becoming a Pashu, and you become pasabadha. You are tied up in a rope of your own making, the rope of ignorance with which you tie yourself. So then it starts, this Vikalpa Parampara, this and that, and the details in which we are kind of lost. But the key two things that we have discussed yesterday, I'm just repeating them, that one is Swatantra Jnatritvata Hani, that you are autonomous and you are able to understand, you are self-aware, that is lost. The second one is that you are Swatantra Karta, you lose sense of your own spiritual agency. That is even more damaging. We have a wrong understanding. Therefore, we see ourselves as an agent of things that we do not actually want to do. They are not in our interest. But why do we do it? You remember that famous book by Jean-Paul Sartre, where he talks about bad faith, being in nothingness, in that beautiful big book. That bad faith where you think something is in your interest and you organize your whole life around an understanding which is actually a condition of your own freedom, which makes your life meaningless. But you think it's going to give you meaning, whether it is about going to a beauty parlor, having a relationship. So many pressures on people, these young people, more confused today, because they are kind of pulled from all directions, and it's the game of Maya. And these matrikas are now manifesting their game, their magical game, in million ways, morning to night. What happens of this pratyudbhava then? Then we know Swarupa Avarana, and then you have that karma mala, subhasva. So broadly, it happens like this: the Chetana becomes Jada. You are the conscious being, and then you are behaving. Then the Atma gets trapped in Anatma kind of thing. You confuse Atma for Anatma and Vedanta, same thing here. And the Paravak, you have this Paravak. Then Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari. Vaikhari is the audible sound when you're articulating a word or something. And Madhyama is in between Pashyanti when you're muttering it, and Para is beyond any sound. It's in a more unified way. You're just aware of it. So you do chanting or anything, you're doing japa. After a few days of it, it happens deep in your mind. You are neither muttering, your tongue doesn't move, nothing happens, and yet that vibration repeats itself in the deepest corner of your consciousness, in your heart or your mind, and then it guides the whole system. It gets conditioned. That is the mystery of this mantric ucharanas. And it's like sound wave comes and creates, right? You have the glass panes breaking, or the water surface. If you have a big sound, there are ripples on it. Similarly, this mantra creates certain ripples in your consciousness, and that's how we have the Sanskrit mantras, that whole science of mantras, the bija mantras and all. Therefore, he's saying Savda Rasi Samuttasya Sakti Vargasya Bhogyatam Kala Bilupta Vibho Gata Sansa Pashu Smritaha. So these Pashupati becomes Pashu, in a certain way. And therefore, he's saying that we have already mentioned Brahmyadinam Kalavihi. What is this Kala? Kakaradi Aksharehi Bilupta Vibhavaha. That spiritual abundance, the blissfulness of your existence, of your awareness, of your essential self, you lose that. Bilupta vibhava san swasvabhavatvat pratyavitaha pasuruchyate, because of his own nature, the Trigunatmika Maya and everything will kick in there. So it is called Pashu. It is seen as an animal, how helpless it is. The divine becomes a temporal reality of thoughts and actions, but it's a divine reality. The truth is divine. It's no different from the absolute, but it's becoming a temporal thing of thoughts and actions and activities. So if we remember that Maya Tattva, that Shakti, it becomes Kala Tattva. Kala is what? The lower limited expression of that Sarva Kartikatva. He can do anything. That is Paramashiva. That is Panchakritya, the first Kritya. Then Sarvajnatva becomes Vidya Tattva, specific, limited. Similarly, you have the Ichha Sakti becomes Raga. In a certain area, it's very modular, it's very limited. And similarly, the Chit Sakti, which is Sarva Vyapaka, becomes Niyati. It's kind of regulated, it's limited. And Ananda, which is again Nitya, becomes Anitya, it becomes Kala Tattva. That is how this whole thing. So, what is that Paramrita Rasha, which there is disturbance because of this Pratya Udbhava? The moment you connect with an external object, what is this? That Paramrita is that Anuttara Paramashiva. There is nothing beyond that. And Rasa refers to Paramashiva. Swa Samaveta Shinamai. That particular self-perception. Ahang Bimarsatmika Spanda Saktihi. Spanda is that vibration. You know this whole image. It's like Lord Shiva is meditating on himself. Lord Shiva doesn't have a physical body. The Supreme Paramashiva doesn't have a physical body. Is that pure Supreme Consciousness meditating on itself, seeing its face in its own mirror, the mirror of consciousness. So that is what he's saying, that Paramrita Rasha. So this was that Sadashiva Tattva or Ishvara Tattva, or you can call it Suddha Vidya Tattva by Ramakantacharya. And then you have this Tanmatra Gochara, means you remember whatever we studied in Vedanta and Sankhya will be more or less the same. You have the Mahatattva or Panchata, you have this Buddhi or Mahatattva, Ahankara, and Panchatanmatras, and then you have Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas and Prana and the Panchabhuta. So totally they'll become 24. So when that consciousness is in the Shiva Bhumi, that means at the level of absolute, pure, unified, integrated consciousness, what does characterize that? Purna Satantriyamaya Spandahatmaka. It's a pure, unified, integrated vibration. Okay? And that is Ahang Vimarshamaya Sakti. That Vimarsha Sakti is itself reflection of that absolute pure consciousness. It's not very ideal to put Kashmiri Saivism or try to understand it in the language of Patanjali Yoga Sutras or Vedanta, but they are not too far away from each other. They are all talking about something about that self-unity, integrity. But the process in which we get fragmented, the stories are different, and the sadhana is also different. There are very subtle, significant differences in these schools of thought, but they all sound similar when it comes to that unified consciousness that we're talking about. And when we descend from that absolute freedom, the state of absolute freedom, unity and integrity, what happens? You are now placing in the hands of Sakti the way it plays it out. So you have that avarohana, descent, manifestation. Remember, in Sri Aurobindo uses, I don't know whether he has, I have to do more reading to sort of conclude whether he was influenced by Kashmiri Saivism. But he has very insightfully, beautifully mentioned about these two words, evolution and involution. The involution first happens, and then you are further evolving. It's like Hegelian language where idea is moving from knowing nothing to absolute perfect understanding. It's the march of God on earth. Idea is moving from knowing nothing to absolute knowledge. He uses that. Now, here, same thing. Once Srishti happens, then all of us are kind of trapped at lower levels of consciousness, and then we sort of ascend again through our sadhanas, through this process by understanding this. That avarohana, sorupa gopanatmaka kriya, and a bahirmukha prasaraha. One thing is self-disguise. That is one aspect of this descent, falling down. I mean, in Christianity, they had apple was consumed by a poor guy. And once he took the apple, Adam fell and Eve fell, and this whole sansara. Then some people say actually it's the tree of knowledge. So it was essential for them to know. That's also a beautiful explanation if they would not dare to ask questions and know, they would be in supreme unity all the time without knowing the value of that unity. Now we are got fragmented. We have taken the apple. Okay, we are tempted to become Sarvagya. We have lost the primitive, sweet, complete blissful existence in heaven. But then you have the opportunity now to ascend back to that way, and you will be much more empowered. You are innocent, you will be good. The difference between innocent and good is innocence is a state of not being aware of what's evil, but also not being understand, not to understand even what's good. But when you're good, you know what's evil, how it troubles you, and then you protect and guide yourself to a level of existence and understanding and movement when evil doesn't trouble you anymore. This is what is happening. That Shakti is now the Swarupa Avaranatmaka Kriya and a Bahirmukha Prasharaha. That is that Maya Mala. Then finally Karma Mala. So Kriyatmika Shakti, because it will push you now into actions. It has created a subjectivity. It has hidden away. It has taken away your hard disk. Particular program will not operate. The program of the operating system, it's like this. There are two operating systems. One of the pure consciousness, the other one is of Maya or Shakti. So one operating system suddenly stops functioning, the other one starts getting activated. When that happens, then a set of windows will happen and certain other programs will open, and then you will operate with them. And all that you see and you can do with your computer is with the help of those programs of Maya. So and then that the different kinds of executions and things that you're planning to do. So this whole Kriya Sakti, when you know what it is, then you can again ascend from that lower level of fall or whatever you call it. I'm tempted to use that Christian language because we are so much, end of the day, we are all talking about a global village in which we share our feelings and thoughts about each religion and use the language of all different religions. So when you don't know how this plays out, it's what? It's bandhakarika, it binds you. When you know, when you recognize what it is, then it's a siddhi prada, siddhi upapadika, it liberates. So same knowledge and whatever action we do, there is this new age sentence they all the time say, the managers also do. Every step you are taking is either closing doors towards you or they're opening some doors. Now here, whatever we do, if we know the signs and you are doing it, it's elevating you. You don't know it, then you are doing it, you are falling further down. So then you have two processes, and there are two santanas, the processes, series of happenings and events, consequences. One is jnana santana, antagana manobuddhi ahankara. So the whole subjective aspect of your reality is what kind of thoughts are you going to entertain, what emotions you're going to feel, what kind of experiences are you going to crave for and change in life. And the other one is that kriya santana, activities. And you have the karmendriyas and the panchapranas and the jnanendriyas, and make use of them. So broadly, you can say 17, you can say also 11. So you can say, depends on how, in Vedanta, they will say, okay, broadly, we have 17 elements, the vikaras. You can say 11 indriyas, manas plus jnana sakti, jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. Some people put prana there. You can make it pancha pranas. It depends on how you want to look at it. So all these are essentially Sivakala, that Adhishtati, that Maya Sakti is unfolding and laying before you the complex game in which he creates this diverse and dualistic manifestation. Now, the whole question now that will appear before you, how and why the mediation through language becomes so powerful. That's why we're doing the sutra, Jnana Dhisthana Matrika. We have understood no pratyaya, no experience, no thought, no emotion can concretely take shape in you without the help of language. That's what we studied. So Bhartrihari, wrote famous Bhakyapadya. He said, "Na sosti pratyo loke yah sabdanugaman sabdanugamad rite anubaddham ivam jnanam sarvam sabdena drishyate na saha asti pratyo loke." You can never have any experience, any upalabdhi, any cognitive activity or event in samsara, yaha sabda anugamam vina, without being mediated through language, that happens. Anubidham iva jnanam, as if it's bound up, caged, it's kind of knitted together, it's constructed. All our knowledge, sarvam savdena bhasate, it appears, manifests, takes shape only through words, whatever knowledge you have. Therefore, you have that we mentioned earlier, that Swarupa Varane Chasya Saktaya Satotodyataha Yatah Sabdanuvedhena Navina Pratyudbhavaha. Without Sabdas, no Pratyudbhava. No Pratyudbhava means then you will not have Swarupa Avarana, and if you don't have Swarupa Avarana, you will not have Subha Subha Karma Vasana. You will not get externally oriented, you will not get trapped in samsara. So you have to return, you have to understand this whole game and how you are getting trapped. So what is the relationship between their knowledge in these alphabets, Varnamalas, and these Matrikas, these Matrisaktis? You have to understand this. You know that Shankaracharya Advaita Vedanta, we have been doing it for quite some time. So Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Paraha. So the whole samsara duality is kind of dismissed as born out of ignorance. But the Kashmiri Saivism, if you look at Sri Aurobindo, if you look at all the Vaishnava paramparas, this is Saiva parampara, they do not reject this whole samsara as completely delusional. Of course, Shankara also says this is phenomenal reality. But somehow there is an attitude of dismissal. This is absolutely not of any value, but the critical difference between that and this one is that they're saying, no, no, you got to know about the details. Then only can you ascend step by step on the staircase. You got to know about this. These are not completely false. Yeah, compared to the absolute divine, yes, these are less relevant. These are game of Maya. These are means to disguise Supreme Lord's Swarupa, essential nature, and you are trapped. Yeah, yeah, we understand. But if you don't understand how they work, there is where is the main difference. The Vedanti will keep on harping on Sravana Manana Nididhyasana, and we have done this whole Viveka Chudamani, where all these advices is given how to have a very philosophical, contemplative meditation. And he mentioned that Yoga Sutra, whatever he says, we have a different way of meditation. But all the time orienting your consciousness towards that absolute divine supreme self. Everything else, less relevant. And there are different prakriyas and different modes of explanation and understanding to dissuade the mind away from the details of the samsara. But here, they are trying to empower your mind and consciousness to engage and work with the samsara to ascend and be free and reunite with the Paramashiva Tattva. So this is all about detail. So what he's saying is that when you have Atma Drishti in Atma, Anatma Drishti in Anatma, not a problem. That jnana is moksha karaka. You have Atma Drishti in Anatma and Anatma Drishti in Atma. I'm poor. They would say, poor boy, can't help you. That is ajnana and that is bandha karaka. So what is this ajnana? So malam ajnanam ichanti sansarankura karanam. The seed of this whole sansara is actually faulty understanding. There's absolutely no distinction between what Kashmiri Saivism says in Siva Sutra and what Shankaracharya says or Ramanujacharya says. All of us agree that lack of appropriate and right understanding is a big handicap. And that's why we are struggling with so many texts. But they are introducing a load of mystic, insightful reflections on the details of this whole process of knowing that lands us in problem. And they are also giving us a lot of detailed understanding of how we can understand the mystical power of the alphabets, of the words and language, so that in our sadhana we can make use of it. There is a lot of upasana here, so that we can ascend further in a sustainable way. That's why, in Vedanta, the biggest thing is if a person is really internally pure, he can very quickly ascend. But for many of the people, it remains intellectual knowledge. And these guys are giving us a handle to do some upasana and sadhana in order to raise ourselves. So as I had mentioned yesterday, avarga, kavarga, chavarga, tavarga, tavarga, pavarga, yavarga, shavarga. So you have all these swaravarnas, vowels. And then you have kavarga, ka, ka, ga, ga, ga. So similar cha varga cha cha ja ja nya, and ta varga ta tha da dha na, ta varga is ta tha da dha na, and you have pa varga, the pa pa bha ma, and you have ya varga, ya ra la va, and then you will have the sha sa 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 ha and a kya. So you have these 50 letters there. Now each of them have one devata, one matri sakti. So avarga will be brahmani, kavarga will be maheshwari is the matri sakti, devata is kameshwari, and the boss of kavarga, adhishtatri devata is brahmi. That is why brahmadya again and again they are mentioning. Somewhere else is saying karandhra vinivasini, the one. Karandhra, ka is that, the akasa, the whole space. And you are right there in the middle of it. And which one is the eight Sakti? The seven, some people say no. Avarge to Mahalakshmi, Kavarge Kamaluda Bhava, Chavarge Maheshani, Tavarge to Kumarika, Narayani Tavarge to Para Hitu Pavargika, Aindri Cheva Yavargasta, Chamunda to Shavargika, Eta Sapta Matrihu Sapta Loka Vyavastita. This is from Swachanda Tantra. This is particular thing that all of these. So, when they do different kind of yantras, they will write different alphabets there. They have mystical power. And you have Vija mantras for each god, each spiritual entity. You are working with them, you are propitiating them to elevate your consciousness. You are doing sadhana. So, Saraswati, for example, the Vija mantra will be Ain. So, each divinity will have its own Vija mantra. Then they construct mantras. Sometimes one Vija mantra is used, and sometimes multiple Vija mantras are used to create different effects. What do? They create a vibration in your consciousness. And we know that something which is vibratory in nature can change the physical shape. It does, scientific. So by chanting, you are changing just not your thoughts, but even sometimes your body, sometimes the way you are. So these have a lot of healing significance. So he's saying, Para Lakshmir Jnana Diptimai Uma Devi Tayasaha Atascha Umeva Saptadha Stita Sati Umapater Deha Vivinna Iti Asta Saktir Maheshwaraha. So, the Mahalakshmi, Parashakti, and Lord Shiva, they're considered one and the same thing. And you have the Saptamatrikas, which are again diverse manifestations of that mystical power of that Paralakshmi. And then we move forward, and then you have that. So, as we had mentioned yesterday, you have that Vachya Vachaka, like I say, this is a pen. That what pen is the Vachaka, this is the Artha, the Vachya. Similarly, there is a Vachya Vachaka Sambandha between these Varnamatrikas and this whole Srishti, what we're dealing, our knowledge and everything. So the Vishwa is Vachya, Vachaka is this Varnamatrika, which you create theories and descriptive and explanatory and whatever cause-effect relationship with the help of language. Okay, then he's saying that now we are going to meditate on these Varnamatrikas a little more, the Matri Saktis. So Devi Mantra Maim Nomi Matrika Pitha Rupinim Ganesha Sahana Kshetra Yoginim Rashi Rupinam. So this is one of the prayers. The Ganesha, Graha, Nakshatra, all. Okay, these are kind of manifestations of that same divine power. So then you have Shukshma, a little below, if you say, that is Pitha. Icha Jnana Kriya, that is Shukshmatama Rupa, subtlest manifestation. And then a little less subtler is Bama, Jesta, Rodri, Yoni Vargaha, Kala Sariram, we had done. And then you have Srishti Sthiti Sanghara Vyaparatraya. Stula is Brahma Vishnu Mahesha, the organizer, the destroyer, the originator, the governor, and the destroyer. And Srishti Sthiti Sanghara, these are the Vyaparas, the mode of functioning of the same energies. You know what they're trying to do? Brahma Vishnu Maheshwara is kind of a modified representation of the game of Maya Sakti, of the mentioning that Saptavargas, Swara, all the Swara Varnas, Avarga, that is Vija, Vyanjana Yoni, for example, different mantris, this is Yoni, there is Vija, Cha is Bhairavi, Avarga is Bhairava, Ka say from Ka to Sha, all these Saptavargas are there. Kavarga, Chavarga, Tavarga, Tavarga, Pavarga, all these are the Saptavarga and Shavarga. These are Yavarga and Shavarga, Saptavargas. So you worship them. Okay, the Saptamatrikas. Now a bit of a meditation on this. All that he's trying to say with all this is that jnana and a mala are kind of having some relationship between them. All knowledge are putting us in some form of bondage when you are unaware. All knowledge, when you are self aware, are liberating you from the stains of your experiences and activities. Now, the game plan is very simple for a sadhaka. Are we going to be self aware, or are we going to be trapped in this whole game of knowledge and experience and emotions and everything? Because you know the Varnamatrika is very powerful. They have terrible impact on you when you are unaware of how it plays out. And the same Varnamatrikas will be so angelic, motherly, loving towards you when you know what they do. It's like the little boy who doesn't listen to the mother gets a slap. The same boy, when he does his homework and doesn't disturb the mom when she's studying or doing some important work, the mother pampers him. That's why, those who are devotees of Kali, she looks very fierce, but you talk to a Kali devotee, she's the sweetest. And once, I was standing at the in Dakshineshwari in Calcutta, and there were some foreigners who were kind of devotees of Ramakrishna. They come from some Eastern European countries, and the old man who was carrying that little daughter on his shoulders, he went and said, "Oh my God, how sweet! Look at the Divine Mother." I was looking at him. What devotion he had. He's not absolutely scared. He comes from a different culture, but he looks at her long tongue and large eyes and dark thing, and then she's wearing these hands and heads. He's saying so she's so divine because he has read about it. He connects with the mysteries behind that. He connects with the energy. He's not trapped by the outer appearance. Because anyway, someday we'll talk about this Kali. Whole thing, she's oozing out this blood. It's all about throwing away the tamas and rajas. You have to throw that away. So there's a whole lot of mystery behind that. And she's wearing those panchasat, this Bandhamatrika she's wearing. The hands, the creative energy for transformation requires rightful engagement. They're symbolized by the hands. So, and then all the time standing on that Paramashiva Tattva, established in truth. That is this whole idea of Kali. How to be in samsara when you are fully, firmly established on truth and you know what is the secret of engagement and how to do it. And eyes are lost in that limitless unity and transcendence of the supreme self and supreme consciousness. She's not looking at anyone, she's just looking at the sky. She's in that perfect mood, and that's exactly what our consciousness is supposed to be. When we're worshiping Kali, we're trying to sort of identify with that mode of representation of the divine energy in order to liberate ourselves. So then he's saying that these saktis, that is adhishtanam, why she's the adhishtatri, that sakti, because it's saying that jnana adhishtanam matrika, the bandha matrikas, because she is that uh, she is bandha rahita and bandha sahita, depending on how we are approaching it. She, in her pure, pristine form, is self-reflective awareness of the supreme self. And then when you have Savdarasi, she's playing out, then she causes bondage. Okay, this is all a game. So you have this Icha Sakti, Jnana Sakti, and Kriya Sakti. And Kriya Sakti is called the Pita, the place, the pedestal. Adhara. Jnana Sakti is Kundalini that rises. You have this Kundalini Shakti. And and Icha Sakti is Mahatripura Sundari. So in Bhavana Upanishad, Sri Jantra Upasana, some techniques there mentioned. So when you have Sambhavapaya, this is the first chapter, it's Jnana Sakti Rupa Varnamai. So you are learning about all this to be able to meditate. And then you have the Kriya Sakti, Saktopaya. Then you have also the Karmopaya, will just lead you to the. So finally, what happens is that falling away from your supreme consciousness because you are trapped in all this, what you are targeting at is recovery of that memory of your Swarupa or essential nature and unity with the perfect ideal spirit, the supreme consciousness, which is Paramashiva. You know that you have fallen down. Once you know the mystical power of these alphabets and how they play out, then you will be able to do sadhana with proper mantras, with proper stutis and bhajans, and create those positive vibration in your consciousness, and then guide yourself by creating positive good sensations. And when you create these positive sensations, then these shaktis help you to ascend to the Parama Shiva Tattva. That is all the Siva Sutra is talking about. There are a few mysterious things. We have a little time and we will try to wind it up. So, first thing is that this whole world that you see is born out of Savada Brahma, Dhunyatmaka. There is a beautiful mention in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So, you have different kinds of music instruments. But if you understand sound, then you will be able to make sense of different sounds and you can understand the language of these different musical instruments. Similarly, if you know what is that divine self, then you can see this whole sansara, which is a vivarta parinama, according to Advaita Vedanta, is a kind of a projected reality. It's not the real modification, but it's a projected modification of what is essentially one unified pure consciousness. So then this dhvani is at two levels. What is that dhvani? At the level of Shiva Sakti Samarasya, that perfect balance, that is united. So it is in that abhyakta state. And in that abhyakta state, the sound is not audible to our ears, even tanmatras, sabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. You can't see them. These are the sukshma mahabhutas. You can't see them with your eyes and hear them and stuff like that. Ekatma bhuta, egi bhuta. They are one and integrated. And this is full and final. Adrishta, you can't see them. The moment this sansara, you remember the Chandogya Upanishad, Sadeva Samya Idamagra Asit, Asadeva Samya Idamagra Asit. This whole thing which was not visible has become visible. Abhyakrita has become Vyakrita. So when it becomes Vyakta, then we assign it Astitva because we can see it. At that very moment, remember, there is some cataclysmic transformation of that spiritual principle which is operating as Avyakta suddenly becomes Vyakta. And when that happens, they say Chobha, a kind of a powerful vibration. It reminds one of the Big Bang. So there is some kind of a vibration, and that is visible, that you can see it. So this Chobha is kind of a vibration. It's a very mysterious sound. Yet, this vibration is not material and it cannot be experienced with and through our sense organs. There's some kind of a vibration which takes place. So this whole reality is essentially there is a fundamental sound or mula dhvani out of which whole thing has manifested. Remember the Bible, in the beginning was the word. So it's not that, we are speaking in different tradition, but as human beings, we are reflecting God's will in different religious traditions. I'm in a way, certain way, pluralist. So, but we are all the time reflecting that spiritual truth in whatever language we are speaking. So this on manifest becomes, which was all embracing, integrated, unified, becomes multiples. The second thing is, remember, even in Advaita Vedanta, if you look at the Upanishads, the first moment in creation is that ikshana, there is ichha that I'll create. Aham bahushyam prajaya, I shall be many. Hiranyagarbha is created by Ishvara. Then he has this meditation. Then he starts doing sacrifices. This whole idea about Aswamedha again in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is a powerful meditation through which whole universe is created. Starts with a meditation, right? It's a consciousness modified as a cognitive process, manifests as will, awareness, and then inclination, the movement, the emotion. Then you want to create, isn't it? Then there's a sense of agency. Remember that same principle that universal spiritual entity consciousness is now modifying. The moment it modifies, then you have the emergence of agency, and this agency has thoughts. It becomes a subjective agent. What am I saying and why am I saying this? The idea, the secret up here is that before the material universe manifested, first aspect of it is that there is sound wave behind it, out of which it appears. The second thing is there's the subjectivity takes different forms. And finally, the form of words and languages and knowledges, which causes bondage. So all that we see, this external reality, we can trace it back to a kind of a movement of the mind, movement of consciousness. And then when it descends to the physical plane, then we can see the details. We see this is jada, this is chetana, this is conscious, that is unconscious, but everything are some sort of a modified representation of what initially was a movement of the mind, right? So that is again a mental, a subjectivity gains objective appearance, manifests as an objective appearance. So you have this world of sound and you have the world of mind. These two things are very interesting. So you have this, so you have that subjectivity emerging, and the subjectivity is connected with external objects or vishaya. And then that's why this, then he's saying Shiva Tattva is originally, it's all emerging out of it. And then all this is fanning out in certain way. So this objective reality of sound, which is not audible at the first moment, then becomes audible and takes the material forms. This is the mystic power, unimaginable power, as they call it, that anirvachaniya maya shakti. Agadita ghatana patiyasi, it can do anything it wants. That is that divya shakti. First, it expresses itself as sound, and then as subjectivity, as thought, as mind. Then the whole creation starts. And then how it starts? What are the aspects to it? There's a frequency, there's wavelength, then you have the intensity, because these are like just imagine electromagnetic radiations, some kind of a radiation, some kind of an appearance of waves. All that comes with, and therefore, I'm again in mention all that because in Spandakarika they're talking about this whole universe is essentially vibration, and we'll get into that later on when we go to that. So when you have Swanurupa Jnana Udaya, in the sense you slowly become aware of yourself, you take your eyes off the details, then you are on the path of liberation. And then you have Vichara Utpati, emergence of analysis, Sravana Manana Nididhyasana Vedanta. Here it is self-awareness through your sadhana and upasana. Then you are making a return journey. You buy the spiritual return ticket, and the return ticket takes you back to yourself. So you have Daivi Shakti, there is Avivakti or self-expression, and then this Sanghanana, the condensation. So you have first Akhanda Dhvani, unified sound, not audible, that is Swarupa Nada, and that Nada Brahma then takes different vibrations, then this is whole creation. We have to sort of, and why does it condense itself? And where does it take? So this is how this kind of second chapter comes to an end, and a little more concluding reflections on it, and we'll go to the next sutra tomorrow. Any questions? Anyone? One or two we can have.
Yeah, just one quick clarification here. So this Shiva meditating, then there is this movement in consciousness, and then this willpower is born. But then this vibration, the initial vibration is not a physical vibration, right? Is that the right order? Some non-physical vibration, then the world is created, and then you have physical vibration. Is that the order?
So the main root vibration is non-physical, that Mula Dhvani, and then it assumes physicality when it I tell you, this is a book that I'm following where a lot of commentaries from a lot of sources are kind of put together. And I'm also trying to follow the Sanskrit commentary of Vattakalata and Siva Sutra Vimarshani. And these are difficult texts. So I'm just trying to put them together to give us an all round picture. But the specifics as we move forward, these things will become clear. But you are absolutely clear, right. That remember that Paramashiva has full agency, full knowledge, all embracing nature. Then, through a process of self disguise, it wants to manifest itself. The very nature of manifestation demands that there is Sankocha of these powers, and his five Panchakrityas, five Shaktis, which is essentially one Maya Shakti becoming five, they become now Vidyas. They become, the Jnana becomes Vidya, the Kriya becomes Kala, and the Icha Shakti becomes Raga. It's like each of them are modified and they become Pancha Kanchuka, five veils of the Maya Shakti. And then it's the inverted process starts. But you are absolutely right about the Mula Dhvani. So it is a non-physical sound, start of a vibration, that Kshova word. It's a jargon, it's a technical jargon. And we'll discuss more about it as we move forward. So can we just close it here and we'll take it forward tomorrow?
Thank you.
Okay. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnama
पूर्णमादाय
Purname
पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
Om
ॐ शान्ति
Shanti
शान्ति
Shanti
शान्तिः
Shri Gurubhyo Namah
गुरुभ्यो नमः
Om Tat
हरिः ओम् प्रणाम
So,
सर
yeah, Pranam. Have a good day. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you.
थैंक यू